Thanks, Tucker, and welcome to Hannity. And this is a Fox News alert. Tonight, exclusively right here on this show, I can confirm from multiple high-ranking DOJ sources who have now confirmed to me directly the Attorney General of the United States has not recused himself from the Uranium One issue. Now, that is huge news tonight. We'll have more on this breaking news with Greg Jarrett in just a minute. Plus, we are following several developing news scandals tonight, all centered around one person, Hillary Clinton, and that ruthless political machine that mowed down anyone who threatened her quest to be the leader of the free world. First, we have new evidence that Hillary Clinton rigged the DNC during the primary battle, and she basically stole that primary from Bernie Sanders and the nomination. Now, finally, multiple prominent Democrats are speaking out against Clinton's corruption inside the Democratic Party. And also tonight, new developments surrounding Hillary Clinton's dirty dossier when she bought and paid for Russian lies about Donald Trump during the election. Tonight, we will lay out exactly what laws she may have broken and why it is now time to start a formal investigation into her corrupt practices. Now, President Trump is even calling out the Justice Department for not investigating what could be widespread Russian collusion within the Clinton campaign and the Democratic Party. All of that and more in tonight's very important Friday breaking news opening monologue. Hillary Clinton, she has been caught red-handed rigging the Democratic primary in her favor. This according to former interim DNC chair Donna Brazile, who says she found, quote, proof that the Clinton campaign colluded with the DNC to demolish Senator Sanders. He didn't have a chance. Now, according to Brazile, who has a new book coming out next week, Clinton controlled the Democratic Party's finances, strategy, even had a final say on staffing, all while poor socialist Bernie Sanders tried in vain to take on the Clinton machine. Now, Brazile wrote an op-ed for Politico magazine entitled Inside Hillary Clinton's Secret Takeover of the DNC. She wrote, quote, I had promised Bernie when I took the helm of the Democratic National Committee after the convention that I would get to the bottom of whether Hillary Clinton's team had rigged the nomination process, as a cache of emails stolen by Russian hackers and posted online had suggested. I'd had my suspicions from the moment I walked in the door at the DNC a month or so earlier based on the leaked emails. But who knew if some of them might have been forged? I needed to have solid proof, and so did Bernie. Brazile later goes on to explain her findings. She wrote, quote, Debbie was not a good manager. She hadn't been very interested in controlling the parties that she let Clinton headquarters in Brooklyn do as it desired, so she didn't have to inform the party officers how bad the situation was. How much control Brooklyn had and for how long was still something I had been trying to uncover for the last few weeks. By September the 7th, the day I called Bernie, I had found my proof, and it broke my heart. Now, that news should disturb every single voter in America. Now, even some of Hillary Clinton's former comrades in the Democratic Party, they are now turning on the twice-failed presidential candidate. Watch them.
Earlier today, we heard from Donna Brazile that what many people had suspected for a long time has turned out to be true. The DNC secretly chose their nominee over a year before the primary elections even occurred.
This is a real problem. But what we've got to do as Democrats now is we've got to hold this party accountable. This is a test for Tom Perez.
It was rigged. Now, we reached out to Clinton's communications director, Nick Merrill, for comments about Brazile's claims. Now, he directed us to the statement that he wrote on Twitter. That reads in part, crux of all of this bluster about DNC and HFA is Sanders didn't have the same opportunities to work with the DNC. Simply are not true. They opted not to. Oh, really? You're telling me Bernie Sanders had the same opportunities to control staffing and strategy and money and the head of the DNC at the time that lifelong Clinton ally Debbie Wasserman Schultz? Give us a break. Hillary had a secret signed contract, so what they just told you is a lie. And by the way, countless Democrats must have known that Hillary had rigged the system. And those are the people that stood by and said and did nothing. And then there's poor Bernie Sanders. He knew now that the system was rigged, and yet he still supported Hillary Clinton in a general election. Where is his backbone? And today, Nancy Pelosi dodging questions when reporters tried to ask her about all of this. This is the highest level of corruption we have seen in our lifetime. Every single person that voted for Hillary Clinton, you should be outraged, especially those that voted in the primary for Bernie Sanders. You were ripped off. This was a stolen election. It's a massive scandal. It is now dividing the Democratic Party. This will haunt Hillary Clinton for the rest of her life. Now, this smoking gun story broke just yesterday, but if you turned in to your network news broadcast last night, you wouldn't even know that this story existed. Newsbusters reports today not one single second of coverage was dedicated to this story, not on ABC, CBS, and definitely not on NBC. Now, this shouldn't surprise us. They're all driven by radical left-wing ideology and politics. They're supposed to be fair and balanced. They report the facts. Now, this is called a bias of omission, and it's the media's favorite trick to bury stories that look bad for their friends, their comrades, the Democratic Party. But unlike them, on this show, we have promised we will expose truth, and we do it every night. Now, tonight, turn to another shocking revelation from Donna Brazile. Not only is she calling out the corrupt Clinton machine, but she also had a few choice words for former President Obama and how he nearly bankrupted the DNC. She wrote, quote, Obama left the party $24 million in debt, $15 million in bank debt, and more than $8 million owed to vendors after the 2012 campaign, and had been paying that off very slowly. Obama's campaign was not scheduled to pay it off until 2016. Now, months after being corrupted by Hillary Clinton and bankrupted by Barack Obama, the fledgling DNC is facing yet another scandal, this time over a staffing email first obtained by the Daily Wire from a Democratic technology manager. Now, this email encourages staffers to look for candidates for some open positions. However, the manager then goes on to write this. I personally would prefer that you not forward literally straight white males since they're already in the majority. Wow. Now, we reached out to the DNC and the person who wrote the email for comment. Shocking. Well, we haven't heard back. This is just one more example of the Democratic Party. They pretend that they're an inclusive party for everybody, all while actively now proving discrimination against people. And also tonight, new developments in the real Russia collusion story. And of course, I'm talking about the anti-Trump Russian dossier, bought and paid for, we now know, by the Clinton campaign and created by a former foreign spy using false Russian intelligence, all designed by Hillary Clinton, her campaign, to use false Russian intelligence to now steal the general election, just like she stole the primary from Bernie. And that's not all. The Clinton campaign funneled the funding of this document through a third-party source in order to cover their tracks. But Hillary Clinton, she wants all of us to think this is a non-story because the dossier didn't come out until after the election. Watch this.
From my perspective, it didn't come out before the election, as we all know, and it's part of what happens in a campaign where you get information that may or may not be useful, and you try to make sure anything you put out into the public arena is accurate. And so this thing didn't come out until after the election, and it's still being evaluated.
It was used by Democrats and people in the media. Her statement is just not true. It is a lie. On November 1st, I'll give you one example, 2016, only days before the election, David Corn, left-winger, he had a lot to say on MSNBC about the former spy, Christopher Steele, and of course, this Trump dossier with salacious lies about Donald Trump. Watch this.
I met this former senior intelligence officer who's really an expert and specialist in Russian counterintelligence for a intelligence service that we all would respect, and learned that he had been sending very detailed memos to the FBI throughout much of the summer based on his own work that he did with Russian sources that was indicating that there had been a Russian operation for a couple of years now, to co-opt and cultivate Donald Trump.
Okay, it just blows Hillary Clinton's comments totally out of the water. But to steal a line from Hillary herself, oh, what difference at this point does it make? Her campaign still funded a former spy to put together sketchy, false Russian intelligence in order to smear the character of Donald Trump and influence an election. and influence the American people. And by the way, according to a brand new report in the Daily Caller, the law firm that Clinton used to covertly fund this dossier, Perkins Coie, was also responsible for helping the DNC avoid an FBI investigation after their servers were hacked. Now, I wonder who Debbie Wasserman Schultz got that law firm recommendation from. How is it that Hillary Clinton, think about this, how does she delete 33,000 subpoenaed emails, bleach bit, acid wash the servers, and then, of course, use a hammer on BlackBerries and iPhones? And why is it Debbie Wasserman Schultz? What's going on here? She does the same thing. She has an IT guy with busted up hard drives in his garage. And then the whole thing with the police and the laptop. I'm telling you, there is so much evidence. What is wrong with the Democrats? How do they get to continue to obstruct justice? I'm telling you, we are only starting to touch the surface here. This is one of the most corrupt scandals that you've ever seen. And it's more than just bad optics. According to Fox News, legal analyst Greg Jarrett, who will join us in a few minutes, Hillary Clinton, others in her campaign may have broken serious election laws. You can see them up on the side of your screen right now. And then, of course, there's the Uranium One scandal. Now, that put, of course, our national security at risk for their benefit. When Hillary Clinton was one of, 9 people to approve the sale of a North American uranium producer to, let's see, the hostile regime of Russia, the bad actor Vladimir Putin, giving 20% of our uranium to Russia when we don't have enough uranium. We have to import uranium. Hillary did this all while Bill Clinton, he got a huge payout from Moscow. The Clinton Global Initiative got huge donations up to $145 million for people associated with the Uranium One deal. And according to Greg Jarrett, Clinton may have broken multiple fraud and bribery laws, including wire fraud, mail fraud, and many others. And let's not forget about Hillary Clinton's email server scandal. Remember? Mishandled national secrets, top secret, special access program, confidential information, all top secret while she was serving as Secretary of State. Well, there she may have broken multiple laws as well. These are very serious crimes. They must be investigated by our Justice Department, and the Clintons must finally be held accountable for their actions. Now, we'll talk to Greg Jarrett and others in a few minutes to break all of this down. Meanwhile, the president rightly is now calling out the Justice Department for not investigating the Russia collusion story within the Clinton campaign and the Democratic Party. Here's the president from earlier.
I'm really not involved with the Justice Department. I'd like to let it run itself. But honestly, they should be looking at the Democrats. They should be looking at Podesta and all of that dishonesty. They should be looking at a lot of things. And a lot of people are disappointed in the Justice Department, including me.
Now, the president continued to air his frustration with the Justice Department on a local radio station. Let's listen in.
You know, the saddest thing is that because I'm the President of the United States, I am not supposed to be involved with the Justice Department. I'm not supposed to be involved with the FBI. I'm not supposed to be doing the kind of things that I would love to be doing. And I'm very frustrated by it.
Now, the president is right. Where is the investigation into Uranium One? Here is some good news. As I have confirmed at the top of the program exclusively, multiple high-ranking DOJ sources have confirmed directly to me that the Attorney General has not recused himself from the Uranium One issue. That is huge news tonight. Now, where is the investigation into the Clinton takeover of the DNC? Where's the investigation into the Clinton-funded fake Russian news so-called dossier with lies and salacious materials to propagandize the American people before an election? So we need to know, where's the Justice Department on all this? Will there be equal justice under the law, as we have been saying we need in this country? And also, according to an interview with Cheryl Atkinson, which will air this weekend, President Trump believes that this Russia investigation will result in him being proven innocent. Finally, I want to end with some good news tonight, which, by the way, you will never hear in the mainstream media because all they care about is delegitimizing this presidency of Donald Trump. All they talk about is Russia, Russia, Russia for a year with no evidence. Right now, we are getting the best economic news we have had in a long, long time. Something, by the way, I was never able to say during President Obama's administration. Now, since President Trump took office in January, our economy has taken off. In October, 261,000 new jobs created, with manufacturing jobs adding 24,000. Unemployment now is at a 17-year low. Consumer confidence, a 17-year high. And over 1 million fewer Americans are relying on food stamps, the best numbers in over 7 years. The homeowner rate in the last quarter has risen, and more people are in the workforce than, say, 7 years ago. Wow. And 2 years ago, President Trump, he promised to make our economy great. That's exactly what is happening, and that's only by getting rid of burdensome regulation. Hopefully Congress will now step up and do their job. Anyway, joining us now is former National Justice Director for Bernie Sanders. Teslin Figaro is with us. Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett, former Clinton pollster, Fox News contributor Doug Schoen. Teslin, I guess I got to start with you tonight. I know you're a big Bernie supporter. And if I supported Bernie Sanders and I found out the news that we just discovered yesterday, that the fix was in, that the primary was rigged, that she stole the election, that a signed secret deal was made with the Clinton campaign and the DNC, I would be apoplectic at how shocking this can happen in the United States of America in this day and age.
It's not even, it's bigger than just being a supporter. You know, I'm here for every supporter, every surrogate that was dragged all over Twitter for speaking the truth, like Senator Nina Turner, Dr. Cornel West, every voter that voted in this primary, those who really believed in the American process. All of us, from Sanders staffers, supporters, surrogates, have all come to say, we told you so. And it's so much bigger, Sean, than just a politician or being a pundit. I worked on the campaign. I spent 7-8 months on the campaign every day away from my 10-year-old child, lost my mother while I was on this campaign due to lung cancer, really believing in the American process. And we told you all along that it was rigged. And so this is really a big deal to have Donna Brazile, someone who has been connected not just to the Clinton establishment, but to the Democrat Party for over 30 years, that has come out and spilled the tea on her own friends. So I look forward to see what else is going to come out as a result of this scandal.
She said she never would have taken the job had she known that this was all happening. An amazing statement. All right, before we get to Doug, let me go to Greg Jarrett. Greg, you know, when you put together all of these separate issues, and all of them, you've got this particular case, you've got Uranium One, you've got the email server scandal. I mean, it's like a scandal a second a day here with them. There are many laws that are in play. First, your reaction to the breaking news that I've been able to confirm that the Attorney General has not recused himself from the Uranium One investigation?
Well, it's very interesting if you go back and look at the transcript of Sessions' confirmation hearing. 3 times he promises to recuse himself from anything related to Hillary Clinton. That suggests to me that the Department of Justice is looking very closely at all of the aspects of that crooked Uranium One deal. It was corrupt, it was racketeering, bribery, extortion, kickbacks, and so on. They're looking at that and who covered it up by not telling Congress about it, which would have certainly killed the deal. Well, we know that Robert Mueller, Rod Rosenstein, and Andrew Weissman were involved in the Uranium One deal and knowing about the illegality of it and didn't tell Congress. And those 3 men are now presiding over the Trump-Russia case. So
you think...
Go ahead.
I want to be specific. You believe that Hillary Clinton's scheme to steal this primary could be illegal and crimes could have been committed. You believe Uranium One crimes. You believe on the email it could be crimes, and on the dossier we could have crimes.
All of those things, which merits an intensive federal investigation and a special counsel. Look, just the latest on the rigging of the election smacks to me as a lawyer of money laundering. Any transaction that seeks to disguise or conceal the proceeds of illegal activity is money laundering. The illegal activity would be violating the federal law on campaign contributions, and secondly, filing a false and misleading report about it. Both of those are crimes.
Doug Schoen, last night you were on this program. Right. I got tremendous feedback. You'd worked for the Clintons over the years.
Yes.
You look at these 4 separate, the dossier, stealing the election, Uranium One, all of these, the email server scandal. You look at all of them. stealing an election in the United States of America, rigging an election?
Sure. Look, I think, and I have to echo what my friend and colleague Greg Jarrett has written and said, we need a special counsel to look at Secretary Clinton and her campaign and her activities as we are Donald Trump. We need to clean up our system. But let's be honest here, Sean. Bernie Sanders had pulled out effectively before California and was negotiating for a plane and speaking engagements in the fall before he even lost and before he even conceded.
But wait a minute, but this was signed long before that.
I understand. Look,
collusion.
This is corrupt. Bernie Sanders wasn't honest. My party is rotting to the core. I consider myself
Bernie Sanders wasn't honest about what?
Bernie Sanders was negotiating for a plane, for speaking engagements, to not challenge the results at the convention.
And what does that have to do with Hillary Clinton pretending as if they were fundraising for the DNC, what ultimately went to her campaign? What does that have to do with the people that we actually met on the ground that said they... No, what does that have to do with the people that... Sir, I don't know if you worked on the ground, but I did. And the people that we met on the ground did not want to support Senator Sanders because they felt that their careers would be destroyed. So this is not about somebody organizing or negotiating a speaking engagement. This is about the American people who have bamboozled, been hoodwinked, and led astray. They were lied to, and shame on every pundit that is trying to spin this into something different other than being lied to.
I think you're right and articulate and obviously passionate. I'm just making the point that Greg Jarrett made really eloquently, that there is multiple acts of corruption and political malfeasance involved. And Sean, I say this as a proud and loyal Democrat. I want the whole thing cleaned up, and that includes, as Greg Jarrett said, a special prosecutor to look at multiple potential crimes.
And then what about Governor O'Malley? What is he, chopped liver? What is no one's saying anything about how he got screwed either. He's a real Democrat if Bernie's not one. He wasn't negotiating speaking engagements. So what about Governor O'Malley, sir? I'd
love to hear from him how he feels. I think he should speak out.
Well, you have the answer about Bernie Sanders, so what's the answer about Governor O'Malley?
Let me give Greg Jarrett the last word tonight.
Well,
Greg.
This begs for a special counsel and has for a long time, not just the rigging of the nomination to the detriment of Bernie Sanders and maybe O'Malley and others, but also this Uranium One deal in which it looks like Hillary Clinton conferred a benefit to a foreign government in exchange for money. A special counsel has to find out whether or not that is criminal. And while they're at it, let's take a look at the email scandal, because to me it appears that Hillary Clinton on numerous occasions violated the Espionage Act by mishandling deliberately classified information.
And if I could add quickly, Sean, to look at the dossier, how it was commissioned, how it was paid for, how the FBI got into that. Everything Greg says is right. We need to know that too. That's why we need a special counsel.
All right, guys. All right, thank you all. We have so much more on this bombshell report. Hillary Clinton stealing the election from Bernie Sanders. What laws are in play? We'll debate that next, straight ahead.
Live from America's news headquarters, I'm Robert Gray. President Trump touching down in Hawaii Friday en route to his first official tour of Asia. Now, the president visited Pearl Harbor and laid a wreath at the USS Arizona Memorial. It marks the resting place of more than 1,000 sailors and Marines who were killed during the Japanese attack on December 7th, 1941. The president also met with leaders of the U.S. Pacific Command, which oversees U.S. military operations in the region. The group's discussion focusing mainly on the growing threat from North Korea, a topic that's expected to take top priority on this trip. The president and First Lady next head to Japan, followed by South Korea, China, Vietnam, and the Philippines. The entire trip will last 12 days, making it the longest trip to Asia by an American president in more than a quarter of a century. I'm Robert Gray. Now back to Hannity.
We did have a lot of fun fighting Hillary, didn't we? Right? Yeah.
All right, those were Trump supporters repeatedly calling for the prosecution of Hillary Clinton. Now, they've been doing this now for a number of years. And last night, the president, he continued his call for the Justice Department to investigate Hillary Clinton. Now, this following the bombshell allegation she literally stole the election, the primary election from Bernie Sanders. The president tweeted, quote, Donna Brazile just stated the DNC rigged the system to illegally steal the primary from Bernie Sanders, bought and paid for by crooked Hillary. This is real collusion and real dishonesty, major violation of campaign finance laws and money laundering. Where is our Justice Department? Joining us now is Fox News contributor, former presidential candidate Herman Cain, Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi. Pam, let's go to you. So now we have the issues that I just mentioned, campaign finance laws. Were they broken? Then we've got the issue on the phony dossier and that she funneled money through a law firm in that particular case with Russian propaganda to influence the election. Now we know that they knew that bribery, extortion, money laundering, kickbacks was all happening, and they still allowed Uranium One to go through. And then, of course, the email server scandal. If Pam Bondi, Attorney General, says, Sean Hannity, I want 33,000 emails, and I delete them and bleach bit them, and I break up my BlackBerry and my iPhone, you're throwing me in jail, I'm suspecting.
It's going to be an all-out investigation, and you know, you and Greg Jarrett laid out this case so beautifully, by the way, you genius. But you know, Sean, the American people deserve to know. I saw a headline, and it read on a competing station. It said, Trump wants to go after political enemies. No, President Trump wants the truth, and the American people deserve to know the truth. And as Attorney General of the state of Florida, I believe in the rule of law, and I have got to have complete faith that our United States Attorney General Jeff Sessions, Rod Rosenstein, they are going to have to dig. They are going to continue to dig. They better be digging right now because, Sean, we have got to find out the truth for the brilliant case that you laid out. This has nothing to do with politics. This has to do with potential law violations, and only the Justice Department can get their hands on all these documents.
You're right. Herman Cain, it is about the rule of law and the equal application of the rule of law. Yes. And the American people are pretty smart. I think most Americans knew subpoenaed emails that were deleted and bleach bit and hammers to devices. That was a good sign. Then on Uranium One, it never made sense to give 20% of our uranium when we are importing uranium to Russia. And now we learn she stole a primary election. And the mainstream media doesn't mention it. ABC, NBC, CBS, their evening newscast, not one word about it, Herman.
The last part of that tweet from President Trump, I think, says a lot. Where is the Justice Department? The answer is the president is going to be gone for 11 days. I suspect, I don't like to speculate, that in 11 days there's going to be a come to Jesus meeting with the Attorney General Jeff Sessions. I like Attorney General Jeff Sessions. I think he is an honorable, honest person relative to his trade. But as Pam said, this is about enforcing the rule of law, and if you break the law, you should pay the consequences. I think he's got an 11-day window to put something on the table that's going to bring justice to this whole situation.
Well, and Sean, as a state AG of the third largest state in the country, I can tell you what would be going on if this was a state issue, and this is what I'm praying is going on right now in Department of Justice. They should have a war room set up. This should be all hands on deck. This is huge. This is not only troubling, I mean, as you've so well laid out, all the potential criminal violations, and they have got to have everybody working around the clock, which I'm praying they're doing. And I'll tell you what, a good federal investigation, we shouldn't find out about. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt now, because a great Attorney General for the United States of America should not be letting us know what's going on. So let's be praying that that is what's happening, that they're all hands on deck. Okay. They're working. They're going after this. They're researching this. This is what they need to be doing right now. And I'm hopeful they are, because we do all like Jeff Sessions.
Herman, I'll give you the last word here. She stole an election. My violator law is there. She paid for, Hillary Clinton bought and paid for Russian lies, propaganda to influence our election. Sold out national security never makes sense on the Uranium One deal. And the email server scandal, it's incontrovertible to me. Laws were broken. Politically speaking, this isn't really about Hillary. It's about, do we have a dual justice system? One for Hillary and the Clintons and her cronies, and one for the rest of us.
If you look at the 8 years of the Obama administration, they worked overtime to shove all of this stuff under the carpet. Well, it's not under the carpet anymore, and we have a different president. And as you've indicated, as much as I like Jeff Sessions, he should either step down, but in 11 days, if he does not, he may get asked to step down, and here's why. If you bring in a new attorney general, he is not bound by recusing himself. He's not bound, he or she, not bound by any past promises. And this way, the Justice Department can do the things that it ought to be doing in order to basically investigate and convict Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation.
All right, guys, thank you. And up next, someone who knows a lot about Hillary Clinton's dirty campaign tricks, Kellyanne Conway. She'll weigh in and join us right after the break. Plus, will the DOJ ever launch investigations into the so many Clinton scandals? How do we deal with this as a country? That's straight ahead.
I'm really not involved with the Justice Department. I'd like to let it run itself. But honestly, they should be looking at the Democrats. They should be looking at Podesta and all of that dishonesty. They should be looking at a lot of things. And a lot of people are disappointed in the Justice Department, including me.
All right, that was the president earlier today saying he is disappointed in the Justice Department over its failure to investigate a lot of corruption with Hillary. The Democrats joining us now with reaction. Counsel to the president, Kellyanne Conway. I don't even know where to begin. I just think especially on the Russian dossier. Now that we know she was in control of the DNC, we had learned, okay, the $12 million, whatever the figure is, 10, 11, it just keeps varying. But we do know this. All of the money was bought and paid for now by Hillary because she was in control of the DNC. The DNC funneled money through a particular law firm, the same law firm that Hillary and Bill used. They fund the whole dossier. It's all full of Russian lies, propaganda, misinformation. Everybody on the left said they cared about Trump-Russia collusion. Look at where we are. You know, we have the evidence here.
Yes, and I really laugh out loud, Sean, whenever somebody says, oh, you Trump people, you just won't let Hillary Clinton go. You still want to talk about last year's election. No, we don't. We're the ones governing. We're the ones reducing almost 900 regulations. This is the president that's passed 71 bills, including 14 congressional review acts. He's putting forward a very bold and robust tax cut plan for the middle class and the job creators in this country. This man is governing, and people are trying to get in his way when they should be. If they want to look backward at all at last year's election, they ought to add what the Clinton campaign, the DNC, were doing to the pot. By the way, you just mentioned that law firm and the dossier, the $9 or $10 million that nobody can admit who paid for it and what they were paying for. It was a bunch of unverified junk anyway, and now we know, and we ought to continue to dig. Right. That same lawyer was mentioned in the Brazil information as somebody who was negotiating with the DNC to make sure that they were controlling the money, controlling the down ballot races, starving those races really to keep it all for the Queen Bee, and it didn't work anyway. But some of those same players are being mentioned there. And again, anybody who wants to thread all this together ought to be doing that.
You know, I have watched since the campaign, and I watch you do a lot of interviews. And so now you have Hillary stealing an election, paying for Russian lies to influence the American people and steal the general elections. We know she stole the primary election and rigged it against Bernie Sanders. Then you've got all the email server issues, and then you got Uranium One, which I think is the worst because we import uranium. We don't have enough uranium. And yet, in spite of knowing all the crimes that Putin's agents were committing in America in 2009, well, Hillary, Eric Holder, 7 other people still signed off on it. And then you follow the money trail. They benefited hugely, financially, on the back end with $145 million kicked back to the Clinton Foundation, Bill doubling his speaking fees and meeting with Vladimir Putin because, you know, and wanting to meet with nuclear agents in Russia. This is... To me, that's selling out our national security.
Well, this is why it's relevant. It's not just relevant how much money people got paid for a speech. I mean, she talked for free for the last 30 years, and very few people were listening. To think she made millions of dollars in those speeches is pretty remarkable. But it's relevant because of what you just said. It's worth a look because the uranium rights. It's worth a look because she was at the State Department when, as the Hill reported a couple weeks ago, Sean, you've been covering nightly, people were trying to get Russian interests were trying to get influence within the Obama administration, and she was there at Foggy Bottom at the State Department. Her husband got the speaking fees. If Melania Trump had given a speech for $500,000 in Russia, it'd be plastered everywhere. So you know it's relevant. You know there's just a triple standard going on here. And I saw by one account, there were 50 times the coverage of the Trump campaign in Russia than there was of the Clinton campaign in Russia. And people still give the nauseating excuse, Sean, is because he won and she lost. That is not what's relevant here. The other thing I would just point out for you.
Hillary.
Yes.
She stole a primary.
Yeah, but she lost
primary.
anyway. Our grandmothers were right. Cheaters never prosper.
Well, she stole it from Bernie.
She stole it from Bernie.
If I was a communist socialist like him.
But that will have consequences
everyone...
moving forward. You know why, Sean? Because now the Democratic Party is fighting the two factions. The far left, which is the base of the party, versus the socialist, which is which are many of the Bernie Sanders supporters. I saw an anchor today, who's a Democrat, but I repeat myself, say, but Bernie Sanders, he's not even really a Democrat. He wasn't running as a Democrat. He was running in the Democratic primary. And by the way, that guy won 22 million votes in 13 states, even though she had tried to rig it against him. He prevailed
I would argue
anyway.
without the rigging and including the superdelegates, I would argue that probably Bernie Sanders won.
President Trump has made remarks like that in the past, and he was right as usual. He's way ahead of everyone else. He had tweeted way before all this was revealed that Bernie was getting the short end of it. It was being rigged. Thanks, Sean.
Kellyanne, always appreciate you being with us. When we come back, our investigation continue. Hillary Clinton's friends in the media, they continue to expose themselves, giving next to zero coverage that she stole a primary. We will explain why that's a serious issue. So much more on this busy Friday breaking news night tonight on Hannity. For Hannity's earlier today, President Trump tweeted the rigged Democratic primary, one of the biggest political stories in years, got zero coverage on fake news network TV last night. Disgraceful. It is disgraceful. Here with reaction. Former Obama economic advisor Austin Goolsbee, Fox News contributor Kevin Jackson. Look, I think you were a Hillary person, Austin. I get that. That's fine. But what about all those people? They had a contract. Hillary Clinton was in charge of everything, hiring, every bit of money, every decision. She had total control. Bernie the sucker never knew. He was in a rigged primary, super delegates on top of it. I would think you'd be angry. I mean, you want free, fair, and honest elections.
A little annoyed.
You're an honest guy.
Look,
a little annoyed. A stolen election. You're annoyed.
Look, it was not rigged in that way. What was happening, if you remember,
well, I beg to differ. Elizabeth Warren said it was rigged.
Well, the Clinton people assumed that they were winning the primary, and everyone knew, if you remember, the DNC was organizing debates on like Saturday nights when the Super Bowl was, the next day, and that sort of thing.
Austin, I like you too much. Take the shovel out of your hand. You're digging a hole.
We're both complaining about their treatment. I think it's fair. I am annoyed that they did not take the primary seriously. But I mean, why are we talking about? The woman lost the election. That's done.
But she stole the primary.
Her primary strategy was even worse.
She stole a primary, and she used fake Russian propaganda she bought and paid for with the dossier, which we didn't know before. Kevin Jackson.
Hey, Sean, you know what's really funny about this? All you got to do to get the left to think about this differently is ask yourself, what would they be saying if Donald Trump had done anything close to this? Now, you and I would be upset with now President Trump had we learned of this revelation that he cheated his way in. Now, these guys, I was on earlier in another program, and they were talking about things like, well, it had no impact, and all these other excuses that the left tends to do. But the fact of the matter is Bernie's people knew he was being cheated. The DNC's been cheating. Hillary Clinton and her band of crooks, that's what they do. It's part of their DNA. And now that the left has been caught, it's like, well, who, you know, what? It's like the Benghazi excuse. You know, what difference does it make? It makes a big difference in the perception of how people believe politics works.
Look, guys, were you objecting when Donald Trump said he compared Ben Carson to a child molester when he said that Ted Cruz's father was part of the JFK assassination?
He didn't cheat him.
Well, I mean, were you guys objecting to that?
Yeah, a lot of people were, you know, and the gladiators fought it out, but they fought it out fair and square, and Ben Carson could have said
That's
things.
not fair. What do you mean fair?
Well,
How is that fair?
So we're talking about words, Austin, versus actual things that the DNC did in collusion with Hillary Clinton, and you want to talk about guys sparring back and forth with words? We're talking about a system that beat down a man who beat him down to the point where, quite frankly, Bernie Sanders himself is now a sellout.
Well,
he had no shot.
I'm not going to criticize Bernie Sanders. Donald Trump called him Crazy Bernie, if you remember that. So it is kind of funny that now Donald Trump is on
she's
Bernie's
crooked
side.
Hillary. Wait, and she's crooked Hillary.
They should not have treated Sanders or O'Malley the way that they did. I agree that this was biased in their favor. That's different than saying they stole the election.
Biased. They had a
lost the
contract.
election.
They
had a contract. Austin, you got a tough job today because there's no way to defend this. And as we said,
I'm not defending that.
I know
I'm
you're not.
defending.
But
That's
you're working around the periphery here. And the fact of the matter is there's no way to even put a soft shoe on this. What they did was wrong. And it's symptomatic of what the Democrats do. And it's also, this goes into the Russia story. This goes into Fusion GPS. This goes into all the things that led to the election of Donald Trump.
But wait, the primary funder of the dossier is a Rubio supporter.
Hey, listen, she stole a primary. The fix was in.
did not.
It was rigged. Bernie had no shot. And if I'm a Bernie supporter, I would be less than a little bit kind of disturbed.
Me too, Sean.
I'd be livid. This is the United States of America.
That's fair. I'd
Free,
be upset too.
Fair. There you go.
Hey, at least he admits it. At least he admits it, Sean. You win.
Yeah. All right, I got to go. Thank you both. When we come back, big announcement. Big. You don't want to miss it. Straight ahead. And welcome back to Hannity. All right, remember last week I'm the executive producer of a brand new movie. It's called Let There Be Light. It opened, we're an independent film, only in 373 theaters last weekend. It was the big movie breakout hit of the weekend. We're very, very humbled, appreciative. So many of you liked it. The reviews have been incredible from so many people. The testimonials have been incredible. Look, Hollywood has a formula. It's sex, violence, and Superman, Spider-Man, Batman 99. Or Jennifer Aniston falls in love and out of love with some new Hollywood actor. That's not our formula. So many times our values as conservatives and Christians are impugned or not even looked at when you go to the movies. So anyway, it's a special movie. It's called Let There Be Light. I promise it'll be intellectually stimulating. It'll touch your heart, your mind, your soul, and most people cry. Anyway, we now have 700 locations this week, so many more of you will be able to see it. Go to Hannity.com to find out where it is playing near you. And by the way, here's a quick clip from the movie.
Yeah, I'm coming.
You're drunk?
Oh, you can't pull the wool over your eyes.
The basic tenet of Christianity.
Whoa. Don't you dare tell me about the love and the compassion of your so-called God.
What do you think it does to the boys to take the death of their brother and use it as part of your carnival act?
Pays the bills.
Daddy!
Clinically dead in the ambulance for 4 minutes. It's a miracle.
I saw Davy, and all I wanted to do was I wanted to put my arms around him. I don't know what to do with it.
You've gotten the best scientific explanation. It hasn't brought you any comfort. Would you consider consulting a different source?
Now this weekend you can bring your whole family to the movie. I promise you this is a movie liberal Hollywood would never, ever dare make. And you're making it successful. Now in 700 theaters, Hannity.com. I hope you enjoy it. And if you go, you probably want to bring tissues. That's all the time we have left tonight. Thank you for being with us. Have a great weekend. Hope you see the movie. We'll see you back here Monday. Laura Ingraham, straight ahead.
Good evening from Washington. I'm Laura Ingram. Thanks for joining us tonight. In the wake of Tuesday's terror attack in New York City, the issue of chain migration is rapidly becoming one of the biggest issues facing America. The process seems so kind and is often framed as family-oriented immigration. When one immigrant comes into the country, he or she later brings in his family members. But this process very quickly increases the number of immigrants living in the United States. Get this. A report from the Center for Immigration Studies says that 61% of immigrants admitted to the United States in the last 35 years are here due to chain migration. 61%, that's 20 million people. The issue has become even hotter following our exclusive interview with President Trump last night. I asked him whether any deal with Congress to allow so-called dreamers to stay in the United States legally, whether it should address the issue of chain migration. You talked about E-Verify, building the wall, chain migration, which is a huge problem.
All of those things are happening. Chain migration.
Is that going to be part of any DACA deal? So if the Democrats want dreamer help, they're going to have to do, they're going to have to do E-Verify chain migration?
Sure. Chain migration is one of the most important things that most people...
Is that a requirement for you?
Until yesterday, most people never heard of chain migration. I gave a form of a press conference and I started talking about chain migration. And this horrible animal, he's an animal as far as I'm concerned, 23 people have touched him, maybe came in because he was in, and he was only in with a green card supposedly, but chain migration where his whole family comes in, his mother can come in, his father, his grandmother, everybody comes in. Chain migration is a disaster for this country and it's going to end. Now, I've been talking about it for a while, but I think the public until yesterday probably never heard about chain migration.
Well, the Republicans didn't want to touch it for a long time. You've held up a mirror to what the Republicans weren't doing.
They're touching it now. It's become a very, very strong point right now.
Will it be part of a dreamer deal, a DACA deal?
It'll be part of a DACA deal. DACA's a lot different than dreamer.
I mean, for the deferred action for childhood arrivals, will you require that if any amnesty talks will require chain migration to end?
I don't think any Republican would vote for anything having to do with leaving chain migration. Chain migration is a disaster for this country.
Joining us now for reaction from Fort Worth, Texas, is immigration attorney Francisco Hernandez, a dual citizen of Mexico and the United States. Fernando, great to see you. Tell us why chain migration is something that should be continued, even given the numbers. Fernando, we're seeing 61% of all new immigrants in the United States come from this process of chain migration.
That's because there's no such thing as chain migration. It's called family-based immigration, and that's the only thing we have in the United States. There's two honor students, Majid and Viola, that will agree if we could just remove the politics from immigration. It's just the law of supply and demand. If there are jobs that are going to come, there is no such thing as chain migration. Nobody's ever heard of it before this week.
Well,
it's family-based petition.
Okay, well, this is what it is. I'll explain it to you. When an individual comes into the United States, this is a fact, this is, according to U.S. statistics, when an individual comes into the United States on a green card, his family members
you don't come in with a green card.
I will
finish. You don't come in with a green card. You have to come in with a visa.
He becomes a permanent legal resident of the United States. That's what a green card is. You ultimately get a green card. So when he comes into the United States,
permanent legal resident.
Sweetheart, let me just finish, okay? And then you can make your salient point.
All right.
When he or she is admitted into the United States, you get that permanent resident status, as we saw with the terrorist from Uzbekistan. You are then allowed to give preferential treatment to certain family members. This is a fact. Now, I know you like to call it family-based. Yes, they are family members. You're absolutely right about that. However, this sheer number of people results in a very difficult thing for both, number one, assimilation, number two, proper vetting, number three, a strain on social services in the United States. No strain on social services, because most of the people coming in are lower skilled labor who obviously are competing with lower skilled American labor, which is our first responsibility.
That is just so wrong. That is just wrong, Ms. Ingram.
Okay,
you know better. You know better because
okay,
you have
make the
children.
argument. I'm waiting. I'm all ears.
Because there's only one degree of consanguinity. It doesn't, for a brother to bring a brother is like 18 years for it to come. It's not like a mass influx of immigrants because chain migration, there's no such thing as chain migration, family-based petition, and that is what this country was built upon.
No, the country, actually, the country was not built upon family immigration into the United States. The country is founded on constitutional principles of liberty and justice for all, and that means liberty and freedom under the rule of law. Do you believe, Francisco, you're a dual citizen? By the way, if you had to choose right now, which country would you choose?
America, baby.
Yeah. All right,
That's what I'm talking about.
I don't get the dual, Francisco. I don't get the whole dual citizen thing. I mean, I guess maybe if someone offered me dual citizenship, maybe I'd take it. But I don't really understand.
My children have a European Union citizenship. That means that American Airlines could hire them. Yeah, 3 there, European Union citizenship.
Wow.
That means they could go to work. Absolutely.
You have 3 countries that you're citizens. Oh, wow.
No, Dutch, Mexican, and United States, yes.
Wow, you hit the lottery there. But do you think that people have a universal, do you think individuals have a universal right to enter the United States? From anywhere in the world.
Right? There's no rights. There's only opportunities. This is the promised land. This is the land that people die trying to get to it. People hang under a train for 8 hours trying to cross the border to get here and make it happen. They don't want rights. They don't want rights. They want an opportunity.
Do you think businesses that hire illegal labor in the United States, that pay them the wages they pay them, that are under market wages, do you think that's compassionate?
Well, that's why we need immigration reform. Yes. Look, they're coming here.
That's obviously not compassionate.
Supply and demand. There's jobs that are going to come. It's not about compassionate. It's about who's going to do the job that they're going to do. Now, why don't we do immigration reform?
Francisco, do you know Barbara Jordan? Do you know who Barbara Jordan is?
Yes, absolutely. Yes,
absolutely.
She
was the famed civil rights leader, African-American woman.
Ethics.
She gave one of the most important speeches on immigration.
She did.
She addressed all these issues, family migration, and her view on this was our primary responsibility. No offense to immigrants. We are a nation of immigrants, and we should welcome immigrants to the United States when we can fully assimilate them, when they're merit-based, not just family-based, but merit-based immigration. But she said what's most important, especially with low-skilled workers, that they end up displacing necessarily American workers, especially African Americans and Latinos in the United States and poor whites.
That is a fallacy. She was wrong. I'm sorry, she was wrong.
So she was wrong?
She was wrong. Absolutely, she was not wrong.
So who do you think did all these jobs before we had an influx of illegal immigrants in the United States? Who did these jobs? Magicians?
That was before.
Elves?
Oh, my goodness. That was because we created a void, a vacuum with the war on poverty in the late 60s, where we guaranteed in this country a minimum standard of living. But you know what? We created a vacuum for these low-skilled and high-skilled.
Why is it fair?
It's not easy.
Yeah. Why should we in the United States, Francisco, take if it's the best and the brightest coming to the United States, why should we take the best and the brightest from other countries who clearly need their work and their help in their home countries?
Well, we sure wanted Albert Einstein, didn't we, Miss Ingram? We'll take Albert Einstein.
That was merit.
That was merit. That's merit-based.
I was being facetious.
But you know what? It was more vocational-based than merit-based because he knew how to do it, and we loved him. So, yes, we're a nation of immigrants. Come on, guys. Let's do immigration reform. Don't be chicken, Congress. I agree, President Trump.
Do you think,
Congress is chicken.
What deportation do you favor? Like, what kind of deportation? Only, like, violent criminals? Or should anyone else be deported from the United States?
Let's come up with a definition. Tell me what the ticket costs to live in this country. Pay your bills, pay your taxes, support your family. Don't commit crimes. You get to stay.
I have a question for you. If someone immigrates into the United States, do you think a family sponsor should be financially responsible for them so the U.S. taxpayer isn't?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
So you would agree to that?
Nothing wrong with that.
On a Friday,
you know
we can agree.
We have never collected one single financial sponsor. Not one ever. Isn't that ridiculous?
Tafshin Malik, or whatever her name is, from the San Bernardino. Remember her, the San Bernardino wife came in on a fraudulent, it was a different type of thing. It was an engagement visa, but it was totally fraudulent.
It had nothing to do with chain immigration.
Well, we're going to find out more from Mr. Saipov and how many family members and other associates he helped bring into the United States. We're going to confirm that 23 statistic, or get the right statistic. But we appreciate you joining us very much on this Friday. Thank you so much. And coming up, Christians overseas are under siege by ISIS. So why isn't the U.S. government helping them? We're going to pull back the curtain after this. We're calling it Pulling Back the Curtain, where we dig deep to expose the real reason for some of the more disturbing developments in American politics and culture today. And our first installment focuses on USAID and U.S. aid to persecuted minorities in the Middle East. These programs are meant to benefit Christians and other minorities in the region, but the benefits have largely gone to those of the Muslim faith. Our government says Iraqi and Syrian Christians are undergoing a genocide. So why aren't they getting the help they need? Just last week, Vice President Mike Pence seemed to take a big step in the right direction.
Our fellow Christians and all who are persecuted in the Middle East should not have to rely on multinational institutions when America can help them directly. And tonight, it is my privilege to announce that President Trump has ordered the State Department to stop funding ineffective relief efforts at the United Nations. And from this day forward, America will provide support directly to persecuted communities through USAID.
But now USAID, a deeply entrenched government bureaucracy, seems to be dragging its feet on the Trump-Pence agenda. A spokesperson told Fox News that the next step is a workshop on proposals, and that it won't take place until January. By the way, that's well into the frigid winter months when these populations are most vulnerable. And the agency's announcement said nothing about cutting off funding to the UN, as Pence originally declared. So why are parts of the government defying the president's orders? Joining us now for reaction from Houston is Congressman Brian Babin, a Republican from Texas. And here in Washington, Nina Shea, an international human rights lawyer for over 30 years, and former Obama State Department official David Tafuri, who just returned from a refugee camp in Iraq. Congressman, let's start with you on this, because when I first heard about this, I thought, this can't be. I mean, you have Vice President Pence announcing that we are now going to be sending aid directly to the people who need it most. We're not going to go through this UN bureaucracy. And then what?
Oh, this is the same thing. This is what we call the deep state. This is USAID. This is the same organization that has teamed up with George Soros in countries like Macedonia. And when the vice president, speaking for the president as well, says that there's going to be a big change in USAID that will go directly to these persecuted minorities like Christians there, and then when the spokesman comes out for not only USAID but also State Department and basically pushes back against the administration, I got a real problem with that. The populations of Christians have fallen in these countries there, in Syria and Iraq, by almost 80%. And the UN camps are filled with ISIS infiltrators, and basically Christians do not go into these UN camps from whence come our refugees into our country. And so this is why it's so important for the tax dollars of the United States to go directly to these persecuted groups rather than through the corrupt and the obviously incompetent UN agencies.
Or purposeful. This is it seems purposeful. I mean, this isn't the first time USAID has gotten itself into some hot water. David, you just came back from this camp, and there's so many poignant stories and so much suffering that comes out of these places. But tell us what we are getting wrong, do you think, in this narrative so far?
Sure. So I was in Iraq about a month ago, and I went to Kirkuk and other places across northern Iraq. 2 weeks after I got back, the Iranian-backed Shia militias and Iraqi army went into Kirkuk and took back Kirkuk, which for the last few years has been peaceful and secure, held by the Kurdish Peshmerga. They displaced 158,000 people, many of which are religious minorities. There's now reports from a Christian town, Tel Aviv, in Iraq, that the Shia militias are actually persecuting Christians there. The problem in Iraq is not going to be solved by USAID or by the UN. It needs to be solved by the U.S. military and the State Department, and by putting pressure on Baghdad to pull back the Iraqi army and pull back the Shiite militias. This is a security problem. It's not something that either the UN or USAID can solve.
Nina, you've been studying this and following this and advocating for Christians in the Middle East, I think more than anyone I know,
for many
maybe,
years.
except Father Ben Keeley is the other one. But tell us why this issue is so incredibly important for people watching us tonight, what they might not know about what's going on.
Yeah, well, there's hundreds of thousands of Christians and Yazidis. These are survivors of ISIS genocide. Now, there's an inflection point now because the U.S.-led coalition has liberated their hometowns, and they want to go home. This is in Iraq, northern Iraq area.
Mosul?
Yes, Mosul, but that's a Sunni town now, Sunni city. But Nineveh province is where the Christians and Yazidis both live. And they're desperate to go back. They are very depressed. They've been in displaced centers for, this is the fourth winter. They've been streaming out of the region. This place is going to be devoid of, they're going to be erased. So
so get me back to Pence.
Yeah,
Pence
the vice president gave a very decisive speech for swift help, for immediate help.
And
for
how much money are we talking about?
Well, it's, you know, we're probably talking about tens of millions of dollars could really help these people go back to their homes. And
it goes to the UN, and then what happens? If it goes to the UN,
well,
which Vice President Pence said he doesn't want to do.
Yeah, let me cite some examples. There's the town of Telescope. This is the town which Navy SEAL Charles Keating gave the ultimate sacrifice to liberate this from ISIS. And there are Christians who have gone back there, and they want to live there. And the UN projects for them with US aid are fake. We have photographs that have been taken. The outside wall of a girls' school has been painted nicely with the UNICEF stamp all over it. Inside, we have photographs of rubble. It's really unusable building. This is a fake project. This is a list.
And there are many
projects that are yes.
There are many fake projects.
You know, there's the town of Tel Aviv. This is a place where that used to be a Christian town. The UN claims it's doing projects for the Christians there.
Not happening.
Well, the UN has moved ISIS families into that town.
Congressman, what can you do, what will Congress do to ensure that U.S. taxpayer dollars are being used in the most effective way to help the most desperate people? We know Christians have been left out of the refugee game here in the United States for too long. Trump's balanced that out quite a bit this year. But what will you in Congress do?
Well, Congress needs to step up to the plate and support the president's and the vice president's aims of giving aid directly to these persecuted minorities like this. And quite frankly, and Ms. Shea, she had a great op-ed with Fox News, which I read just today. It was talking about a school in Tel Aviv where the used to formerly Christian.
She is just referencing that. But I want to get to this. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but Congress has got to get on this. And if the government is working against the wishes, David, of the administration, the bureaucrats inside the government, I saw it during the Reagan administration all those years ago when the State Department was working against Reagan. That is completely insubordinate, and they're just running their own mini-government inside our government. You can't support that.
I, of course, do not support that, and that should not be happening. But there's a strange thing about what Vice President Pence tried to do. He tried to say we need to move our funding for refugees from the UN to USAID. But at the same time, the administration has proposed huge cuts to USAID, 27% cuts over the next 10 years. So how is USAID going to do more for refugees when it has less? That makes no sense. But the bigger problem in Iraq, which people have to understand, is the administration's support for the one Iraq policy rather than allowing Christians and other minorities to have more power
Iraq was a disaster.
in Iraq.
Iraq was a disaster. Should never have gone to Iraq. Trump, that's part of the reason why he won.
It's a political problem, not a funding problem here. We gave $32 million to the Rohingya Muslims just 2 months ago, as we should have.
Yeah, we're helping people who need help, but these Christians are among the most persecuted, and the Yazidis as well. It's a great conversation, and no one else is talking about it. Congressman, I'm so sorry. We'll have you back. I'm going to be on this issue for years. So thank you so much. Straight ahead, the pornification of the American culture and the recent explosion of sex abuse allegations. Are they related? And do they suggest greater dangers for our children down the road? Welcome back. How a pornified culture created an explosion of sexual abuse in America and how it could be destroying our children's future. That's tonight's angle. The only thing that seems to knock the Russia story off the headlines these days are reports of rampant sexual abuse in Hollywood. Whether it's Miramax founder Harvey Weinstein facing multiple claims of rape, Oscar-winning actor Kevin Spacey accused of pedophilia, or even Hollywood legend Dustin Hoffman confronting sexual harassment allegations, it's clear that something is deeply wrong in Hollywood. But of course, it's not just the media and entertainment industry. Today we learned that the scandal has moved to the world of high finance. 3 women, including 2 Playboy playmates, filed a $27 million lawsuit against George Soros' former fund manager, Howie Rubin. The women allege he brutally raped them in a Manhattan sex dungeon, just when you thought things couldn't go lower. But it's important to remember that none of it is happening in a vacuum. Hollywood and the media have been ratcheting up sex and violence on screen and in print for decades. Every year, a new envelope is pushed. So we shouldn't have been surprised by these scandals. We should have expected them. It's hard to pick out exactly when all of this started, but a good place to look is the founding all those years ago in 1953 of Playboy magazine. The publication's founder, Hugh Hefner, essentially mainstream porn with his glossy pinups, sometimes celebrities, sometimes not. But I know everyone just bought the magazine, for the interviews and the Gore Vidal essays? Here's how Hef himself defined his own legacy.
What do you want your legacy to be? You want Hugh Hefner, businessman, civil rights activist, philanthropist?
Somebody who played some positive part in the changing social sexual values of my time. And I think I'm pretty secure in that.
But you don't think that Playboy at all made women objects rather than equals?
I think that women, in the best sense, and not in a negative sense, are objects of desire.
Well, at least he's honest. Social, sexual values of our time. Well, the robed Pied Piper of porn whistled a tune of objectification, and the whole world followed. But how did Hollywood react when he passed away in September? Of course, utter adulation. Kim Kardashian tweeted on September 28th, "R.I.P. to legendary Hugh Hefner. I'm so honored to have been a part of the Playboy team." Jenny McCarthy, 1993 Playmate of the Year, lauded Hef, quote, "for being a revolutionary in changing so many people's lives." I'll say. Bear in mind, this was just a week before the Harvey Weinstein scandal was blown open by the New York Times. Hollywood treated this dirty old man like a newly minted saint. The sexual abuse scandals are partly a case of life imitating art, and I use that term art loosely. Hef normalized the objectification of women, and Hollywood upped the ante. Look at Kevin Spacey. In the movie American Beauty, he played a suburban father who has sexual fantasies about his daughter's underage friend. Hollywood was so enamored with his performance that they gave Spacey an Oscar for that role. What was the impact of those images, I wonder? And might they have contributed maybe a little bit to the abuse of underage minors? Or at least made people kind of numb to it? And Hollywood tripped over itself, spending millions of dollars to adapt the so-called mommy porn 50 Shades of Grey series. For those that don't know, those books and films revolve around a young woman who begins a sadomasochistic relationship with a young billionaire. On the far side of abuse and degradation, she finds true love. Just what we want for our girls. Yet even NBC's Today Show held a contest so excited mothers and their daughters could attend an early screening of the film. The pornification of the culture and the sexual deviancy it's created is not confined to the remote worlds of entertainment, finance, and the media, of course. This is killing intimacy, it's killing relationships, and there are now reports on the rise of sex bots, sex robots, and virtual reality porn. People just won't do real relationships anymore. This is numbing them to what a real relationship is. And my deep concern in all of this is for the children who stumble across a website on their iPad or an image and are quickly transported to a very dark place that could very well destroy their own emotional futures. And that's the angle. Joining us now with reaction from Boston, Dr. Gail Dines, founder and president of The Culture Reframed and author of Pornland, How Porn Has Hijacked Our Sexuality, along with Dr. Karen Ruskin, a marriage and family therapist. It's great to see both of you this Friday night. This explosion of sexual harassment allegations leading the way to more revelations of more depravity, that story about the sex dungeon and a fund manager for George Soros. It's getting more violent. It's getting more depraved, if possible. It's getting more depraved, and it's becoming. I mean, you can't even describe this on television. It's so filthy. Tell us about, Dr. Ruskin, we'll start with you, the effect on children that we know of now, with how early they're seeing these sexual images and what it's doing to their own sense of emotional development.
For young children, my biggest concern is what I'm seeing in front of me is that they are believing that unhealthy relationships are healthy. We're actually transforming what is deemed a loving, healthy relationship between two people and with a family. What used to be considered deviant is now considered acceptable. There's no longer black and white. Everything is gray. Everything is acceptable. And if I want something when I want it, then I get to have it. And that is what children are learning. And that is danger written all over it on every level when there is no longer right from wrong.
Dr. Dines?
Well, what we know from studies is that the average age of a kid, first a boy looking at pornography, is 12. Now, this is not accidental. What's happened is that thanks to the free porn business model, which was developed by a group called MindGeek, which is based in Luxembourg, when that made pornography affordable, it made it anonymous, and it made it accessible. The 3 A's that drive demand, and that really took off around 2009. Now, who is going to go to a free porn site? Those who haven't got any money, those who haven't got credit cards, children. So I would really argue that the business model of pornography was to get in the boys around 12 to 14 whose brains are actually hardwired for novelty and risk-taking, because if it's like me giving out cigarettes outside of middle school at 12 years old and going back each day and each day. And what's astounding to...
So kids, excuse me, so just so we understand this, so especially young boys are for the first time seeing the image of a female body, and in some of these cases, the type of images they're seeing are so violent in their depiction or so extreme that this is what they become used to or that they want. And then that puts pressure, Dr. Lovegood, on the girls to perform in the same way.
I think I actually
one at a time, Dr. Luskin.
And I'm actually seeing this is not just for boys. This is boys and girls, and it's even younger. In my practice, I'm seeing as a therapist, it's much younger than 12, and this is being depicted not just with TV shows. This is in music. This is in magazines. This is in, even if you look online, there's pictures of animals. That's animated art that look like humans, and there's very inappropriate behavior that those animals that look like human are doing, and young children are seeing that as young as 5, 6, 7, 8, and they are moving their bodies to what they are seeing, both boys and girls.
And Dr. Dines, what does this do ultimately just as a woman, you think about this. To a young person's understanding of intimacy, real intimacy and love and respect, does it enhance it from what we've seen from 1953 all the way to today?
No, what we have to think about pornography today, which is not your father's Playboy. As bad as that was, I mean, really, it's a bit ironic, but I kind of look back with nostalgia at that, because what we have now as mainstream porn is so hardcore that in our father's generation, you had to go to a porn store, know somebody who could get you access to that level of hardcore. That is now mainstream. And that's what I think a lot of people don't understand. They think that maybe boys are looking
Well, Hollywood helped make it mainstream. My point is that Hollywood, media, advertising agencies, the entire media apparatus, books, 50 Shades of Grey, this all helped numb people to this. This mainstreamed the whole thing. And so now we turn around and we're like, oh, how surprising that like teenagers have an explosion in STDs or girls are dressing like little prostitutes. I mean, this it all is a continuum. It's a continuum. Dr. Ruskin, last word.
You are so right. The pornification of America has creepy-crawled into our home, our marriages, our families, and we're not even consciously realizing it.
Now, we're realizing it.
Couples need to be more, some people are, some are not.
Ladies, parents have to be the first line of defense for their kids, be an active parent.
Yes, but
and
we're going to be just on parents.
We're going to have both of you. Yeah, we're going to have both of you back, because this is a problem that's not going away. And we're going to look for solutions, real solutions for parents who want help for their kids. Thank you so much. Up next, President Trump kicks off his 12-day trip to Asia. We're speaking exclusively with U.S. Trade Rep Bob Lighthizer. The big stakes involved, a potential trade war with China, right after this. Just hours ago, President Trump touched down in Honolulu, Hawaii, making a stopover as part of his 12-day, 5-country trip to Asia. Aside from the issue of immigration, President Trump was largely elected on his promise to renegotiate trade deals that have really hurt American workers. As such, one of the most important jobs in the Trump administration, and especially on this presidential tour of Asia, is the U.S. Trade Representative. The man who currently holds that job is Ambassador Robert Lighthizer. He sat down with me for a rare interview yesterday at the White House. Ambassador Lighthizer, great to see you. I know you love giving media interviews, so thank you so much for spending time. You are off to Asia. It's a big trip. It's the longest trip the president has ever taken since he was inaugurated. What's the goal?
This is a very important trip. It has two elements. One is security, geopolitics, and the other is trade and economic issues. I'm obviously concerned about the second. We're going to Japan, to Korea, to China, to Vietnam, and then the Philippines, and that would be $65 billion deficit, $27 billion deficit, $350 billion deficit, $32 billion deficits, and in the Philippines we don't have a lot of trade with. We have essentially balanced trade on a small volume. So there are a lot of economic issues, a lot of trade issues. The biggest one, of course, is China.
Purely on the China front, what can we do other than impose tariffs to stop the Chinese cheating on international trade, whether it's dumping, whether it's subsidies of major corporations selling products for under market value?
Well, I mean, we have to have a coordinated effort within the administration, and I think we do. First of all, the geopolitics is somebody else's problem. I'm going to focus very much on working men and women and farmers. That's what I was hired to do, and that's what I'm going to worry about. China has an industrial policy that involves a lot of subsidies, a lot of dumping, a lot of forced technology transfer, all these sorts of things. So what have we done? We have prosecuted cases on anti-dumping, on countervailing duty. The president has initiated a case on so-called 301, which looks at the intellectual property transfer.
Which they call a Cold War era relic. The, quote, free traders criticize you and the administration for using this outdated federal statute to go after China.
Look, it's a very effective tool. We'll use the WTO when we can. The president's willing to act unilaterally when he has to. And when we say it's cold rolled air, look at Ronald Reagan used it, and he used it very effectively, and it made a big difference for our trade policy, and a lot of people benefited from it. So we'll use every tool we can as long as it's fair and consistent with law.
China has something called their 2025 project. It's their focus to dominate every major industry, from 3D printing to rare earth to heavy manufacturing, tool manufacturing. It's really ambitious. Is it just kind of pie-in-the-sky thinking, or is there a real opportunity for China to dominate all those industries?
It's a very, very serious challenge, not just to us, but to Europe, Japan, and the global trading system. And basically, it's very focused. It is the areas you talked about, but also aerospace, on new energy vehicles. I mean, they want to be on top of all the high-tech, all the cutting-edge economic areas. And it's smart for them to do it. I mean, they're doing something that's in their interest and that they should do. We should be in a position where we defend ourselves with the same amount of vigor, and I think that this president will do that. But that is a genuine threat. It's a combination of massive subsidies, of closed markets, and a focus on technology transfer. So it's a very, very serious threat in all of those areas. And if you go through the parts of our economy that are affected by it, it's hard to find any kind of a tech part that's not potentially adversely affected by this.
There's a split in this party. There has been for a long time. But before Trump came along, it was Buchanan and Ross Perot and Mike Huckabee and Rick Santorum, the blue-collar conservatives. Do you have any doubt in your mind about Trump winning because of his position in part on immigration and in part on trade? Would he have won Pennsylvania or Ohio, do you think, if he didn't have that focus on the American workers?
No, I think he focused on what we used to call Reagan Democrats, and now they're really Trump Democrats. They're working men and women, and they're farmers. I think he focused on them. I think he is very empathetic. This is a man who goes out there and sees what is happening to these people and in their communities. He cares very deeply. Personally, I think it was a major, major effect. One of the two or three probably most important things, and I think he believes that, and I think he's going to deliver on his promises. We're going to change this paradigm.
Businesses say we need the market certainty. We need the certainty or we can't operate. And you say?
What they're really saying is we need the certainty so that we can invest in Mexico.
So we can we want certainty in outsourcing.
We want certainty in outsourcing. And my reaction to that is that's not my job. My job is trying to create manufacturing jobs in America and to put upward pressure on people's wages. These people in America, many of them, these workers, haven't had a raise in 10 years. And they deserve a break. And the last thing we should be doing would be ensuring, guaranteeing, subsidizing investments in another market. It makes no sense. And by the way, in the case of automobiles, 80% of those cars, 80% are shipped back to America.
So wait, so they're manufactured in Mexico, shipped here with no tariff?
Shipped here with no tariff. That's precise. That's the idea.
Are you stunned at this point that after the president wins, after Donald Trump wins in November of last year, almost a year ago, we are still seeing the same arguments made in the Wall Street Journal, by the Chamber of Commerce, by the Cato Institute, that he is acting in a protectionist manner, that he's trying to put up walls to trade, walls to people, and the free market, the free flow of goods and services is going to be hurt, and American consumers are going to be hurt the more aggressively we pursue this trade enforcement. They're still making those arguments.
Well, I mean, if you say, am I surprised? No. I mean, those arguments have worked very well for them for years and years and years and years and years. Here's the reality. The reality is the president wants efficient markets. The president wants open, fair, reciprocal, balanced trade, but we don't have it. Everybody knows that. So the question is, what do you do? Do you buy a rabbit's foot, cross your fingers, make the sign of the cross? Do you do that? Or do you have a strategy where you're going to use every tool America has to ensure that our workers and our farmers get a fair shake?
So when they say you're going to start a trade war, you say?
We're not starting a trade war at all. We have exactly the same objective as the Chamber of Commerce. Exactly the same objective. The question is, how do we get there? We've tried it their way. We've tried it their way for 25 years. Since at least 1995, we've tried it their way. All I am saying is, let's try a different route for a little bit. The result of their way, I would suggest, is a $750 billion goods deficit and an overall goods and services deficit of $500 billion. I mean, these are staggering numbers. We ought to try something else. I think we're going to end up with more efficiency. We're going to end up with more global wealth. It's going to be fine for businesses, but most importantly, it's going to be fine for American workers and American farmers who need a break. And part of this whole trade idea, this whole public contract, is that we give fair trade in return for open markets. And that's what all the workers bought into. Until now, they really haven't got it. But with this president, I think they're going to get it.
Tell me about the president's leadership style on this particular issue.
On at least my area, he knows the stuff. And if you look at his life for 30 years, you go back and he'll say exactly the same thing he said 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 15 years ago. It's remarkable.
Ambassador Lighthizer, thank you so much for spending some time.
It was my pleasure.
By the way, I did that interview while 4 radio shows were going on around me in the East Room of the White House. Impossible, but we got through it. And I got to tell you, next, Byron York is going to join us. The mainstream media is having quite a week. And we're going to give you the big lowlights up next.